Before you scroll, answer this honestly. When was the last time you smiled, even though your heart was breaking? Most people think a smile is just an expression. But what if one smile could change the course of your entire life? Not because it was magical, but because someone was quietly watching. This is the story of Daniel, a man who believed life had forgotten him until one ordinary day, when one small act of kindness became the reason everything changed. Daniel wasn't born poor. He wasn't born unlucky. Life simply changed faster than he could understand. First, he lost his father. A year later, his mother passed away after a long illness. The house that was once filled with laughter became painfully silent. Every morning before sunrise, Daniel walked to a small warehouse where he carried heavy boxes for 12 hours a day. His hands became rough. His back ached. His salary was just enough to survive, not enough to live. Every night he stared at the ceiling, asking the same question. Will my life always be like this? Something disappeared from his face, his smile, not because he hated people, but because disappointment had become his closest companion. Then, everything changed on a rainy afternoon. Daniel stood at a crowded bus stop. People pushed one another to get on the arriving bus. Suddenly, an elderly woman dropped her grocery bag. Apples rolled across the wet road. Bread landed in muddy water. Cars continued driving. People looked, then looked away. Daniel checked the bus. If he missed it, his manager would deduct money from his salary. For a few seconds, he fought with himself. Then he made a decision. He let the bus leave. He walked toward the woman, one by one. He picked up every apple. He cleaned the bread as best he could. When he handed everything back, the woman looked into his tired eyes. Then she smiled. It wasn't a polite smile. It was warm, the kind of smile that makes you feel seen. Without realizing it, Daniel smiled back. The old woman gently said, "Never stop smiling, son. You never know whose heart you're changing." Daniel thanked her and continued walking. He thought it was just another ordinary day. He was wrong. Across the street, a man in a dark coat had watched everything. Not just Daniel's kindness, but the choice he made when nobody expected anything from him. The next evening, as Daniel left work, he heard someone call his name. He turned around. The same man was standing behind him, calm, confident, smiling. "I've been looking for you," the stranger said. Daniel frowned. "For me?" The man nodded. "Yesterday you passed a test, without even knowing you were taking one." Daniel's heart began to race. A test? Who was this man, and how did he know his name? The stranger reached into his pocket and handed Daniel a small card. Then he said something Daniel would never forget. "Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, come to this address. If you don't, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been." The next morning, Daniel stood in front of the address. It wasn't a small office. It was one of the largest buildings in the city. His worn shoes suddenly made him feel out of place. He whispered to himself, "I don't belong here." Just as he turned to leave, the glass doors opened. The stranger stepped outside. "I was hoping you wouldn't give up." Daniel followed him inside. They entered a quiet office overlooking the city. The stranger finally introduced himself. "My name is Mr. Harrison. I've spent the last year searching for one person." Daniel looked confused. "A person for what?" Mr. Harrison smiled. "To lead the foundation my late son dreamed of building." He placed a photo album on the desk. Inside were dozens of pictures, people helping strangers. Some ignored those in need, some pretended not to see. Then Daniel saw a familiar picture, the old woman at the bus stop. His eyes widened. "She knows you." Mr. Harrison nodded. "She's my sister. We've spent months watching how people treat others when they believe nobody is watching." Daniel couldn't believe it. "You tested people?" "No," Mr. Harrison replied softly. "We simply gave them an opportunity to reveal who they already were." The room fell silent. Then Mr. Harrison placed 2 envelopes on the table. Inside one envelope is a high-paying job. Inside the other is enough money to save a struggling widow and her little boy. "I can only approve one today." Daniel stared at both envelopes. His entire life could change. No more unpaid rent, no more empty stomach, no more sleepless nights. Then, a young woman entered the room holding the hand of a little boy. The boy smiled at Daniel, but behind that smile, Daniel saw fear. He remembered his own childhood. He remembered losing his parents. He remembered praying that someone, anyone, would help. Slowly, Daniel picked up the second envelope. He walked toward the woman. "This belongs to you." Tears filled her eyes. "No, I can't." Daniel smiled. "You need it more than I do." The little boy hugged him tightly. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Mr. Harrison stood up. His eyes filled with tears. He reached into his desk and pulled out a third envelope. "I wasn't testing your kindness. I was testing whether success would change it." Daniel opened the envelope. Inside was an offer greater than he had ever imagined: a leadership position, a home, a salary beyond anything he had dreamed of, and one mission: to spend his life helping people who felt forgotten. Daniel looked at Mr. Harrison. "But why me?" The old man smiled. "Because skills can be taught, money can be earned, but a heart that chooses kindness when it has every reason not to, that's priceless." Years later, people often asked Daniel the secret behind his success. They expected him to mention hard work, discipline, or luck. Instead, he always smiled before answering. It all started with one smile. Most people laughed. They thought he was joking, but he wasn't. Because that smile wasn't just for an old woman. It reminded Daniel of the man he refused to stop becoming. So before you leave, remember this: someone you meet today may be carrying a pain you'll never see. Your smile may not solve every problem, but it might give someone enough hope to keep going. And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness creates the biggest change. Never underestimate the hidden power of smiling.